Hello, hello, and welcome back to Decoding the Flow, the podcast where we explore creative consciousness. I am your host, Drica Lobo, and today's guest is someone that I've admired for so many years, not only as a longtime art collector of my work, but as someone whose curiosity has inspired my own journey. Dr. Joel Gould. He's a dentist, educator, musician, and creator who has dedicated years to making science engaging and accessible for children and families. Through cartoons, music, and storytelling, he transforms complex topics like nutrition, vitamin, mitochondria, membranes, and the human body into lessons in music that are memorable, joyful, and easy to understand. Just a little backstory, because long before we met, I remember listening to one of Joel's podcasts interview a few years ago, and it completely changed the way I see nutrition and the things that I put into my body. So right after that, we collaborated on those artworks that I was telling you about, inspired by the incredible world inside our own cells and bringing together science and art in a way that continues to fascinate both of us.
Thank
Well,
you.
I love how you're fascinated by so many different things, but your core idea, it is to bring science to children's and to make it accessible for it. Can you explain where this fascination started and how you bring it all these different words together, such as science, creativity, storytelling, you name it?
Right. Well, every dentist, I think, is a frustrated artist, to be honest with you. And I've been artistic my whole life, but I didn't work as an artist because it's very tough, as you know, to survive and to make a good living. And truthfully, dentistry's been a great career. I'm good with my hands. I have good spatial relation vision. And I never thought I was going to do anything like what I'm doing. It was very late in my life that something very profound happened to me that changed everything that I thought about. And that change made me realize that there's information out there that I only discovered for myself 10 years ago that's really affecting our health. And what it comes down to, I like to frame this up and say that what I discovered is that humans, us, the human animal is essentially living in captivity. So right now I'm inside my place. It's artificial lighting. There's four walls. There's a couple of windows, but this is not a human's natural habitat. We live outside. And what I learned is that animals in captivity get sick. So I was sick for most of my adult life. I had an autoimmune disease called Crohn's disease. And by accident, 10 years ago, I reversed it completely by learning how the human body really works. And I'm not disparaging medical doctors. If I get hit by a car, I want the best surgeon in town to put me back together. But doctors aren't taught about how our bodies actually work. And we don't get a instruction manual when we're born on how this body is supposed to work. And so for the last 10 years, I've researched the science that saved my life at the age of 48, reversing my autoimmune disease. And my information actually coordinates with why kids' jaws don't grow. Why don't we have room for all of our 32 teeth? Why do kids who used to get braces once, why do they need braces twice? The mystery is all tied together in nutrition and what we do with our bodies and a topic called epigenetics. Genetics are your genes, your DNA, what you were born with. Epigenetics describes the study of how you utilize that gene blueprint and what allows your body to utilize certain genes. And that's the environment. That's the sunlight and radiation that we're in. It's what we put into our bodies. It's how we eat. It's all of those details that we really don't have a lot of proof or science about. And that's the story that I want to tell of how the human animal is a sensor for the environment, and we're taking in signals from all around us. And those signals reach all the way down into our DNA. And so when I discovered, first of all, losing my life to autoimmune disease and having recovered so profoundly. I knew that I could utilize my experience as a clinician, a clinical dentist, and what I discovered, my background in molecular biology and science, and my ability, in my opinion, to be able to take complex ideas and simplify them into sort of bite-sized chunks of what I call infotainment. So I can tell you a really boring fact, but I can also make it interesting. And what brings me to our first work together, Drica, is that I commission you to draw for me the electron transport chain and the inner mitochondrial membrane. So people have heard of mitochondria, and I'll get into that's my alter ego, DJ Marty Mitochondria. But I have a really strong desire to share what I learned about science, health, and wellness with the general public. And I knew that because of the way I see things and my artistic overview, that it would be a good fit for me to try and share that through popular culture, through music, and through literally understanding of how people take in information. And so we did that drawing together. It's a beautiful drawing, and what caught my attention with your work is how you are able to capture the effect of light on water. It's really beautiful, and that's really was the essence of what drew me to your art. And I knew that because this is happening with two pools of water inside cells where everything is full of water, 60% of our bodies are water, then I knew that you represented it something that's really sciency in a very beautiful and dramatic way.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I remember it was so interesting because I had listened to your podcast. I didn't know who you are, but it really changed the paradigm that I was living in. This was back in 2020. Then I started investigating you and I went on into your website and I post something on stories and I realized that we are basically neighbors. So that was so interesting. And that's
Yeah.
how we started collaborating.
Yeah.
I have heard about the mitochondria before, but when you hire me to paint the actual mitochondrial membrane and the whole chain, I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea how I'm going to do this, but you are so into it and made me study a whole 6 months about the mitochondrial membrane. I just became very obsessed with it and I just kept following your work. And I really like how you also have the music, as you were calling your DJ, as an alter ego. How did you come up with the music? It was just as part of your work as the cartoons that you created.
Well, if we think about ourselves as hunter gatherers, and that's what I want to really frame everything about, is that in the old days, prior to written language, information was shared by tribal elders with the tribe, and it was sung, it was danced, it was told in stories. And that's how our survival went on for so many hundreds of thousands of years. Right now, how we share information is completely different. So I wanted to think about modernizing the way that hunter gatherers are communicating, and music was very easy because it's emotional. And when you learn a song, you sing the words. And I've been a huge electronic music fan for many years, and I always felt a great sense of community when I would go and see a really great DJ at a daytime party and go with my friends, and people would know the songs and sing along. And I wanted to take that experience because that's technically a tribal experience, and I wanted to utilize that to share my information. And I know what's out there for kids is so limited. It's violent stuff. The music that's out there for kids is so annoying. I wanted to create music that both mom and dad and kids would be able to listen to at the same time. And then I wanted to bring in the tribal aspects of dance. This type of stuff is hardwired into our biology because before we could speak, we grunted, we clapped, we chanted. This is all part of how humans communication evolved. So drumming and rhythm is very deeply hardwired into who we are as human animals. So that combination of bringing music into the mix, it wasn't even a leap for me. And then as a child that really remembers the 80s when I got my first video cassette, VHS cassette of Duran Duran, and it had videos that were telling a story to the music. This is, early 1980s. This is very instrumental into my view of pop culture and media. And I knew that if I wanted to share the information that I learned, that I could utilize those aspects, put the music and the video together, and then sort of add the extra component of being interactive online, Web3, metaverse type stuff. And that's really what I designed my information to be. I designed it to be multimedia so that it could impact adults and kids. And I created a sort of a multimedia music entertainment franchise that speaks to old and young people this all the same and uses a lot of nostalgia and pop culture so that parents can interact with their kids better and not be so separated. Kids watch these cartoons and adults watch something else. I really wanted to make a cohesive program, and I saw a huge void in the market for anything even mildly health, wellness, or science related. There's just nothing. And so there was a giant white space that I saw that was my opportunity to take what I had learned and with the authority that I have with, 35 years as a clinical doctor, that I could put this together.
Can you explain or be a little bit more clear on the exactly work that you've been doing that combine that music, your DJing, and all of those aspects that we are talking about, please?
Right. Well, I wanted to create, like I said, a cohesive story. So I've created cartoon characters of vitamins and minerals. I created 4 different cartoon franchises, all different aspects of biology. I have enzymes, Mother Nature's nanobots. I have the heroes of light. That's the celebrity VIP vitamins and minerals of the human body. And they interact because enzymes run every function in your body. But enzymes need cofactors, and cofactors are vitamins and minerals, and generally they work together. I created something called the amazing aminos, the amino acids that make up every protein in your body, and made cartoon characters for them. And then my last one is called the bios, and that's my really fun young kids cartoon where it's very simplified, just fun and very bright music. And so I wanted to create a whole ecosystem where this functions. And so I created a record label. And my record label is called Deuterium Records. Hard to remember, but it's an important word. And so for my record label, I have all my artists. My artists are my cartoon characters. And I knew that to be able to get this out into the ethos of what kids are into, it would have to be fun. There would have to be dances. It would be tongue in cheek humor. It would be spoofing celebrities. So I did a cartoon called EMZ, which stands for Enzyme Molecular Zone. It's on my YouTube channel. Anyone can watch it. And it's really a combination of the cartoon characters, getting to know their personality, having them joke around, and reveal science at the same time and have it sort of be catchy. So these cartoon characters, the foundational 4, my first 4 characters, I created music videos for each character. And just like in the 80s with my Duran Duran video, I'm telling a story. So I start out with vitamin D3, and she shows up in vitamin K2's video. Vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 crash and land into magnesium's video. And then sulfur, who's the 4th member of the foundational 4, rescues everybody. And that's the 4th video. But they're all joined together. So these characters, vitamin D3, vitamin K2, magnesium, and sulfur, they're also a band. And I literally have a band where we have vitamin K2 plays bass. I'm still looking for my vitamin D who plays keyboards, but I created a band and we play kids songs and we put on a show for Halloween. So I'm trying to really cover every aspect of what would be involved in really a paradigm. So it's not, I didn't make a cartoon. I created a paradigm, a multimedia, multi-generational cartoon, health, wellness, music empire that I'm trying to launch. And they're really, people would say, well, why don't you just stick to one thing? And as much as I wanted to, it had to be co-created. I had to build this foundation all at the same time to be able to get what I wanted. And now, I've been putting the pieces together for a while. And now my goal is to blast this out. And what's really interesting is I've been stuck. How do I do this? But I'm utilizing my cartoon characters. They're the ones who are struggling. So my cartoon characters, they work for Mother Nature, and Mother Nature is not happy because kids are not healthy these days. So we actually go on the journey where my crew of characters can't figure out how do they get to go viral, and then everybody contributes. So it's kind of like I'm taking everyone along a journey with me because I need to get this out there to every platform. I need this to be the next Disney. And when I say that, I know that's taking a pretty big bite, but literally that's what I've created, and I'm okay. I'm going to keep doing this until it's out there. I'm going to build it piece by piece until everyone understands their own biology in a really fun and catchy way.
That is so beautiful. It reminds me of so many multi-passionate creators that may feel lost with so many different ideas and have no idea how they can bring it all together and make it as one. Even myself, I write a book, I have a podcast, and then I have my art practice, and then I have my collaborations, and then I have my murals. But what is something that you have to say for someone who may be struggling right now to find this merge multi-passionate things to make it X one thing?
It's very interesting that you asked me that because I had struggled working on this and that. And one of my patients said, write a screenplay. So I wrote a screenplay for a movie and I think it's pretty good. But these days you cannot get a screenplay to Hollywood, and it's a musical. So what I'm hoping to do is launch the music and then have somebody be interested because the music catches on first. But when I wrote that screenplay, it pulled together every aspect of what I was doing. And I work a lot with AI, and I was kind of shocked that I had such a great experience writing the screenplay. And the AI reminded me, it said, Joel, you've been telling the same story over and over and just in different ways, in different mediums, for different ages and different reasons. And doing that screenplay pulled together because it's a live action and cartoon. My characters, the foundational four, they go into a dream world where they actually meet DJ Marty Mitochondria, who's actually their science teacher. So it was really cool to pull that together. So I encourage everybody, if you're not using AI, don't let it push you around, but it can be smart, it can be helpful, and it can give you ideas that you maybe don't even put together yourself. So I would say, if you have a cohesive idea, work with AI to figure out what's best and just be patient. And even for someone as focused as I am, when AI said that, Joel, you're just telling the same story over and over again in different ways, I was kind of insulted. I was like, wait, no, yeah, I am. So maybe our work with a friend and say, hey, you've read some of my stuff. What do you think the core idea is here? And even though I had that core idea, humans are living in captivity and our bodies are not getting the right inputs. I had gone in so many different directions and done so many different things, really trying to get different people's attention. So I would create things to submit to them. But looking at all the pieces together and combining it was a huge help.
I like AI, just not for creation itself. The creation needs to come from us, the brain idea, but to recognize patterns that because we work so much into that, it's hard for us to notice. So
You
I'm
can lose your
glad.
perspective in your own work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are so when it comes to pattern recognition, especially in our own work, we've been doing the same thing for so long, it's really hard to
Yeah.
notice. Yeah. So now I'm very curious, what role has curiosity played throughout your career?
Well, when I reversed my autoimmune disease, I discovered I'm a Canadian dentist, and I discovered another Canadian dentist that published a book almost 90 years ago. And this was information that I had never seen before. And I was really dismayed because this book that he published was most likely sitting in the library at my dental school many years ago. And had I known about that book or seen that book, it would have changed my life profoundly because it had information that still is really not out there. Once I discovered this man's work, that's when I really became curious about, if I had suffered a life of illness that was reversed in 3 months through information that's literally sitting out there, but people aren't taking in or no one's teaching, then what else am I missing out on? And so what I did was I set out to update this gentleman. The book is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Dr. Weston A. Price. He's a controversial character, and not a lot of people know who he is. And most dentists have never heard of him, which is shocking because he really described how our face and our teeth grow. And once I discovered his work, I wanted to think about what would he do if he were alive today? Because back in those days, he photographed everything. And this was the 1930s, early 1930s. This was very unusual to photograph people's jaws and put it into a book. This was not the normal. So that's why I sort of started thinking about what else are we missing out there? And that's where I found my tribal elders. I found several researchers whose information I believe is instrumental to long-term health and wellness. And I interviewed them. Their interviews are on my YouTube. Some of them are really old because I've been working at this for a long time. But it was the missing pieces that profoundly changed my life that I could see were affecting so many other people that got me to the point where I wanted to investigate. There's a lot of information out there, and especially before maybe Instagram was so big, there's a lot of people saying specific things. And so I really wanted to know, is this valid? Is it when someone says this is important or that's important, is it really? And, again, prior to AI, you do the research. It's a lot easier these days. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yes, it definitely did. What is one piece of advice in directing people to what will be the best way to take care of their body or best practices? The same with creativity. If somebody is struggling to put themselves out there, what would you have to say? So, two questions.
Right.
How
Well, so
creativity.
you have to create a space to be able to do something. And it can be really just symbolic. And when I say a space, I mean either a physical space, say when I'm in this office, or for me, I have my studio right here. I'm at my desk. I'm at home. At work, I have a different setup. And at work, I put on the wall behind me something called Modern Sleep Solutions. And that's because when I got into what helped my health, I was treating sleep apnea and snoring at my office. And I have a program called Sleep Restoration. It's very different than what people think when it comes to sleep and what to do when you can't sleep if you have insomnia. So I definitely want people to find my work if they have sleep issues, because that's really the core of it. But I created a setting where I felt like this is my sleep specialty space. This is where I'm going to work on this. And then I created a routine. I said, during these hours, I'm going to work on this specific thing. With creativity, it can be a lot different. So when it comes to your health, setting out a routine, it can't be strict because otherwise it's oppressive, but a loose routine of what should I be doing? How do I manage my day? I'm going to structure my day to benefit my health, and I'm going to put it as the big chunks of what I do for my day is obviously work, and then I have my activities and other than my creative time. So you kind of really, if you don't have some sort of schedule, time is going to slip by and it goes by very quickly. So for both areas that we discussed, you want to create a specific setting, location, schedule. So for myself, I have so many things that I have to do when I come home. But the first thing I'm supposed to do is pull my guitar out and run through some of my songs. So having that routine is really important because again, it's so easy to let these things slip. Even if when you I'm so driven to share my information, but I get busy and I get tired and I have a long day at work and I come home and I just want to, you know, I always schedule in my time outside, walking outside, going to the gym, doing the things that I do. So keeping a good routine, it's critical, but also keeping a space. When it comes to creativity, it depends on what you do. I have an area where I have my watercolors and, that type of stuff. Is that
I
that's the
love
stuff sort
that.
of,
I
yeah, that's
love
what you're
that.
correct.
Yeah. It took me so long to set up my own routines in life, especially my morning routine, which I believe is one of the most important things in your entire life to set yourself up for a successful day. But once I did, I cannot live without it. What would be your morning routine, if you would you mind sharing with us?
Sure. When I get up, I try my hardest to get outside and get morning light. And it doesn't have to be a lot, whether it's just, doing a short walk. And even if the sun's not out, that the light outside is very powerful compared to any light indoors. So that's step one. Always, I make myself a special coffee that has what I want in it. And I have an organic coffee. And I always put in grass fed butter because I want to start my day off with a healthy fat. And then sometimes I do collagen powder, protein powder, different stuff, some creatine, and that starts my day. And that's my ideal. Then if I'm not working, then I usually start my day out with my exercise, with playing beach volleyball, or something more physical. So that's the start of my day. And I know that you know skipping breakfast I'm technically skipping breakfast, but most of the time I'm telling my body that I'm awake because I'm having those protein powders and that. So that's technically a meal. It's just that I love to have it whipped in a coffee with butter and it's frothy. It's like I went and got a expensive latte, but it's organic. It's the stuff that I want in.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I have a question because this podcast called Decoding the Flow, and you are such a creative person. Can you tell the last experience that you have with flow states, being in flow states, and how does it feel in your body? You are listening to Decoding the Flow with me, Drica Lobo. If this conversation is inspiring you, take a moment to follow the show and share it with someone who is ready to live more creatively. You can find more inspiration, art, and behind the scenes stories at dricalobo.com or my Instagram at dricaloboart. Now, let's take a deep breath and get back to the flow.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I don't get to a lot of flow states, and it was something that I hadn't thought about until I really started composing and making music. And what I started to find was when I would really when the stage was set correctly and I was working on a track, I would start to work and time would go by so quickly that it would just totally freak me out. And I'll never forget, I had a 5-hour flight. It was probably LA to Miami, and I had a perfect seat where no one was going to get in the way of my arm, and I had my laptop, and I had one of my most important tracks that I had a lot of work to do on, and got onto that plane and I sat down, I started working, and we were landing before I knew it, and I just couldn't believe how much time had passed just so quickly. So being like in the flow, it's really everything around me just completely disappeared, and what I'm working on is my central focus, and I mean, it's hard because, sometimes I gotta get up and do some push-ups and move around because I could hurt my back because I'm just so focused. And I think that you get into that when again, when you set the stage right, when you put yourself into that schedule and that physical location, then that's when really that can happen the easiest.
Yeah, you have to be completely focused on that activity in hand. That would be number one. Also, know exactly what you were looking to achieve towards that end of that activity. I'm very curious now because you seem to use your creativity in so many different ways. When you have that idea, that insight, how do you know exactly what area would you bring that idea or that insight to fruition?
I think that I'm probably different than a lot of people in that I have a core mission. My core mission is to share really this critical health information that can change people's lives. And I want you to think of it this way. When I was 14, I got sick, and I remained sick for 34 years until the age of 48 when I reversed my illness. I lost all the best years of my life. And when I look back at my life, I am really saddened by how unnecessary it was. And this really hurts me because I know how many people have gone through the same thing who don't know what I discovered. And the level of attention that I have, this just consumed me. And my goal was to make sure that nobody else would suffer like I did. So it was a deeply personal thing for me to discover this. And then when I did all my research and I spoke to a lot of people, I interviewed a lot of people, like I said, you can see on my podcast. The information I'm sharing is only just now starting to break out and not enough. So every time I approached a project, and this is probably very different than a lot of people you may be interviewing, because I did not set out to be an artist. I did not think I'm going to be a musician. I want to do art. I said to myself, I have a story to tell and I want people to listen. And I'm willing to do anything within reason to get this information out. So I decided to try every form of expression to see, could I get this to click? And the interesting and I guess technically sad part is that until now, my work hasn't really been well viewed. And it's something that I have to keep in mind, that it's not because it's not good. All my stuff is great. It's just not being seen. It hasn't been exposed. And truthfully, this is another interesting thing in the evolution maybe of an artist or a concept, is that every time I do a project, so when I set out to do those animations for the music videos, first of all, I wrote the music. So I couldn't do the videos until I wrote the music. Once I did those animations, I started to see filmmaking as something very different, and I wanted to have the skill to put together a film. So I started working on Adobe Premiere. When I was working with musicians, I didn't like what they were doing with me, so I got the program Ableton Live because I wanted to make the music myself, because the musicians, they didn't know what I had in my mind, and it was very hard to collaborate. So sometimes you can't get to the next level. You kind of have to inch your way up. And I feel like in the process that it took me to do all these very different things, every single one of them was a massive learning experience and a skill that I require to have to get to my ultimate goal. And if you think about it, I'm not just like saying, hey, I want my book to do well. I'm trying to launch the next Disney. I have a massive cartoon franchise. It's a health and wellness company. I have my own vitamin line with the only other cartoon branded vitamins. You can't do that overnight. And it's going to take me the next, I don't know how many years. I'm never going to stop, but thinking that you can do something really quickly, it's a little bit delusional, but sometimes you need that. I needed that. I needed to believe that I could do it because I
Of
don't
course.
know that if I would have known the amount of work, the thousands of hours that I put into in every single thing that I've done, I don't know that I would have gotten to this stage, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's extremely daunting, but for me, the compulsion to get my information out there, it was the most powerful thing. And when I would get into, get into music and I broke down music and as an electronic music appreciator, I never imagined for a second that I could write it. So when I started to write it, I thought, oh, wow, this is so cool. I guess I better DJ. And then that's when it really hit me is that if you want to create the biggest effect globally, if you want to get your stuff out there, the easiest way, in my opinion, is a global DJ. And that's what allowed me to create my cartoon character, DJ Marty Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Why? In your biology, everything is irrelevant without the mitochondria. Mitochondria gives you energy. You know mitochondria, no life. So this is the superstar of your biology. And really, when you look into popular culture, there's very little about science. And when you look into actual science and you see the mitochondria, it's not like, oh yeah, that's some sciencey thing. And everyone just says, oh yeah, the powerhouse of the cell. But this is really important because the key to health, wellness, longevity, and having a great health span is understanding your mitochondria and knowing what your mitochondria wants. And so I decided to bring this character to life. This is my alter ego, sort of a combination of Seth Rogen in the studio, kind of like an overbearing, self-confident, obnoxious, but insecure character that is the powerhouse of the cell that is designed specifically. I designed this character to be the driving force behind the entire paradigm because the mitochondria is the driving force behind our biology. And I knew that utilizing the electronic music world would be the easiest way to get global domination. And hopefully one day everyone will agree with me and there's no kids DJ if you think about it. So this is the right character at the right time. So all of this intense desire to share my information, I'm heartbroken. I see even my own patients I see every day. I've shared this with a lot of them, but when people don't follow through with what I recommend and I can see that they're suffering, it really hurts me. When I see people struggling with their weight and their health, and I see them going for a run, they're beating themselves up like I did. I had a difficulty controlling my health. It hurts me. And so I have the strongest desire. I'm going to make these cartoon characters come alive. And the truth is that I love every minute of it. And there's nothing more fun than singing and performing and sharing this stuff. So I'm very lucky that it all gets tied together. But I don't think that I'm the typical person, maybe the typical creative, but you never know. Mine is such a big, all-encompassing concept that it's a lot.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you because without delusional, like you said, we cannot really achieve our wild dream. We have to be delusional. And now neuroscience proved that as a fact. So
Yeah,
thank you
definitely.
for making me feel normal because sometimes I feel I'm a little delusional as well.
I think you have to be sometimes.
What excites you most about the future of science, education, and creativity?
Well, again, this is where I have to get delusional. So I have to believe that what I've created and what I see is going to be successful so that years from now I will have a successful media company, health and wellness company. And the most important thing and why I decided to do it this way is that For the last, I don't know how many hundreds of years, we're literally being deceived by companies that make money off of us. And I don't want to be be negative about the pharmaceutical companies, but I'm negative about them. I don't think they really care about us. I think they want to extract money from us, and you see it in the commercials. Some of them are just really, you know, they're compelling in terrifying ways, and then you hear the side effects. So I wanted to create a cartoon franchise that would make the science so obvious by people getting to know the characters that they would know and understand how their health worked because they knew and loved the characters. They would sing the songs, they would do the dances, and they would understand exactly how their body worked. Now, that's delusional, but it's really not, because kids get obsessed with all kinds of characters. And recently we had K-pop demon hunters. That became a huge thing. Electronic dance music. I think my music is better. And I didn't like the message. The cartoons were a little weird, but I have a wholesome health and wellness cartoon and music franchise. And I'm really excited to be able to put this into the world, because I don't think that anything else like this exists. We've seen the prototype. It's a Disney, it's a Pixar. We've seen it, but I have a different perspective. This is information that's not getting out there that's important. And I decided to make my information fun first, but I interwove the science so deeply into the cartoons that you can't separate them. You can't say, oh, this is educational. It's entertainment. Will you learn something? I think you will. When you see my science, you might be surprised because it's kind of irrefutable. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just showing you the science that I discovered, and I'm putting it out there. And keep in mind, the stuff that I'm talking about has been presented to us over and over throughout history, starting in the Industrial Revolution when we first learned about how important vitamin D3 was. And this information just keeps on getting shuffled under, and people are forgetting and wearing tons of sunscreen, and not and avoiding red meat, and things are not, mercifully, we're changing things. We've turned the food pyramid upside down, but I really want this information as a part of popular culture, because if Weston Price would have been successful with what he did, I would have had a completely different life. And I don't want to leave this planet without giving it my all to put out information that's going to change kids' perspective. Kids usually hate science. Everyone I know, they hate science. I loved it. And I loved it because I had great teachers. So I wanted to make something that would change kids' perspective and think science was fun and great and exciting. And that's what I created.
Well, you did that for me. Can you imagine for kids? I think your work is magnificent and it's so necessary. And I really believe that's what the world is needing right now. I mean, you can see our normal paradigms almost crumbling. People are not really trusting what they're seeing anymore. I believe it is the perfect time for it. And just the amount of work and love that you put into everything that you do is just so inspired. Thank you so much. Is there any last message that you'd like to share with us?
What I want people to understand is that your doctor is a very kind, caring person who truly knows a lot about medicine. And the unfortunate thing is that they've been given the wrong information about health and wellness, and we've all been given the wrong information about health and wellness. And it was taught to us. If you're old enough to remember a time when we said fat was unhealthy, and everything became fat free, and then we started wearing sunscreen. And I'm not saying don't wear sunscreen, but the things that the big issues that I have with what's being talked out there is that we need to understand that real food is healthy, and that we don't have a lot of real food out there. So I like to think about, what was our life like when we were hunter gatherers? What did we eat? We ate ruminants meat, and those are cows, goats, sheep, anything that has a rumen. And that's a very special organ. It's a multi-chamber stomach that filters and puts all the best stuff into the meat of those animals. And unfortunately, things like chicken and pork have become unhealthy unless they come from a regenerative farm, because those animals are monogastric. They have one stomach, and whatever they eat, you eat. And if they GMO corn, grain, and soy, that's what you're eating. It's very sad. The other thing is that we have six senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. And the sixth sense is not ghosts, it's radiation. Radiation comes from light, it comes from the equipment around us. And I want people to amplify natural light and being outside, spend more time outside and spend less time indoors. I want all my patients and everyone I know to block their blue light at night. Why? Blue light destroys melatonin. Melatonin is more than a sleep hormone, it's a powerful antioxidant that your body really needs. And your body will make melatonin basically based on how much time you spend outside. So that's why I want to spend a lot of time outside. I want people to also understand that our bodies evolved feasting and fasting, and that's a smarter way to live rather than eating 3 meals a day with snacks. You definitely want to give your mitochondria some time without food. Intermittent fasting is very important. And my latest project has been something called the FMD, the fasting mimicking diet, a very profound metabolic setting that you can find out more about on my YouTube. I did a presentation on it. And I think it's a really important health hack to get our bodies to get rid of all the cells that are not in good shape. So I want to view me as a human animal that used to live outdoors, and I want to try and supplement the missing elements of life that will keep me healthy. And that's kind of, and most importantly, I think that if you have children, if you're a parent and you have kids, I really want you to understand that your pediatrician isn't necessarily thinking about the developmental issues when it comes to how the jaw grows and even pediatric dentists. So if you're out there and you have kids, I'd love you to check out my work. I would really like that. And, I'd love everyone to help me grow my cartoon characters into the global phenomenon that I have in my delusional mind.
I love your imagination and how you make it work into all these different outlets of creativity. Can you give us three pieces of advice on how to keep our imagination and creativity alive?
I think that when I came up with all these different things, what I looked at was I thought, How can I express? I have an idea that I really want to share. How can I express this idea in the most obvious way?" And that's where I went initially through music, then I went through cartoons, and I think that if you have, you start at point A and you want to get to point B. If you know what your point B is, if you know what the goal is, it can be a lot easier to take that journey. If you're just doing stuff to be creative and you enjoy the process, there's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, I'm not sure that I'm your typical artist. I was very driven to create something. I'm a storyteller at heart, and I utilize my artistry to tell that story, whether I'm directing a video or whether I'm writing a song. I want to take you on this musical journey with me. And I always want to tell the story. So I would say, know what you want to do, understand what your endpoint is, and then think about the creative components that come together because everything in life, one of my catchphrases is that Mother Nature favors diversity and collaboration, that no living thing on this planet operates alone. And you can utilize that in either looking at the work that you do, it's a collaboration of your skills, or if you have friends who are artists, spending time with them, getting their opinions, getting them to be honest with you about the work that you're doing and not being afraid to have someone critique your work and not have your feelings hurt. Sometimes somebody's opinion that you value can be very helpful. So reaching out to people and then be delusional. What can I say? If you have a dream, the only thing that you might regret is not trying. And I look back on this last few years and I did everything wrong, but I did it. And as I look back on it, I can see and learn that when I get to the next stage and the next stage, I learn from my mistakes, but I never want to give up my enthusiasm and delusional belief that I'm going to succeed because if even one has a better life because of the effort that I put in, I'll be happy enough. And like I said, I'm not going to stop until DJ Marty Mitochondria, Marty M, is literally a global DJ that's a very well recognized person or creation for kids and adults around the world. So I say, I guess be delusional.
Yeah, my gosh, I love that so much. Well, thank you so much, Joel. Where can people learn more about your work and follow your beautiful journey and everything that you are creating next?
Thank you. If you do Instagram, you want to go to my Instagram is Modern Hunter Gatherers. Just type in Modern Hunter Gatherers and I'll come up. It's MHG. And in that, the link in the bio is my link tree. It has a link to everything, including my music and my live DJ sets, all that in one place. If you don't do social media, go to drjoelgould.com. and that will link to everything else that I do. That's DRJOELGOULD.com. That's my authority website where you can see the different work that I do.
Yeah, I'll definitely add everything to the show notes. And I'm really grateful to somehow have contributed to your work through our collaborations. And hopefully we'll keep exploring this. Thank you so much, and we'll
My
talk
pleasure.
soon.
Thank you very much. It was
Have
great.
a good one.
You too.
Bye.